Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. And I've got quite a story to tell you, and it's one that always happens right before they crash the economy in a recession. And that is Wall Street starts spinning, well, the Fed is not going to raise rates anymore. They're done easing. The yield curve's not going to go any flatter. It's certainly not going to go negative. And they spread this joy gel. And what's amazing is how many fund managers and idiots really fall into it and how many people get themselves wiped out in the trap. The Fed absolutely, positively is unequivocally going to be raising rates and doing a hell of a lot more. And the reason why is the economic numbers, although it's a sugar high, it's still plenty of sugar, it's still high, gives them the latitude to do what they know they must do, and that is raise rates and rescue this economy from itself. They have got to get the craziness out of the marketplace. Now, the Fed has got another interesting situation, and that is they've got the President of the United States that was kind of saying he doesn't like these higher interest rates and he wants the Fed to stop, which is a little bit unprecedented. But there's more. And what's interesting is that even the administration can't get their story straight. Munchin, hey, mommy, I'm on TV again. And he says that we're going to have a 3% growth for the next 4 years. That's 3% yearly growth rate. And I thought, well, Munchin, aren't you really a cool dude? Of course, the problem is Kudlow. Kudlow's going with the president's 4.1% growth rate. And he said that the 4.1% growth rate will be sustainable. Munchin, well, Munchin's at 3. So which is it, guys? 3 or 4 or more? Donald Trump says he thinks it'll be more than 4%. Of course, he is the bullshitter elect, and I say that we're going to average 2%, 2.5 to 2% this year, under 2% next year. Then after that, we'll be going negative because we're headed for a depression. How do I know? Well, it's very simple. You add 2 more quarters, okay? We had the first quarter point rate increase, the second quarter. We'll get a third quarter, another 0.25%, fourth quarter, another quarter, quarter, and a quarter's half. Now you add 4 quarters next year with a half on each quarter, and you got 2%. So now you've got interest rates that are going north of 5% on the Fed fund rates. That's enough, and probably closer to 6%. That's enough to crash the economy real well. Why is the Fed doing it? They have got no choice. It is amazing to me that people don't understand. The Fed has got to raise rates. They've got to get more to a normal policy. They can't have this giveaway going on any further. They have excess. See, the Fed knows the stock market's a bubble. Really, truly, they really know it. The Fed knows that the housing market is an enormous bubble. They really know it. They also know there's massive amounts of debt that will never be paid back. And they really got a problem. So from a Fed Reserve policy making, the decision is made for them. They have got to raise rates, and there's going to be a lot of heat. There is going to be an economic meltdown, and hopefully they can contain it and just do a plain, ordinary recession. I know, you know, and believe me, the Fed knows that this is going to be a big one. Why? Well, 10 years of zero interest rates has created enormous bubbles in the economy, in the real estate, investment trusts, in the structured debt market, in junk bond loans. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Remember, U.S. businesses also made vast investments offshore because they had access to cheap money. The problem is the Fed always likes cover. Cover is where you can say, hey, listen, we didn't know there'd be a recession. Holy cow, we'll fix that. Oh, is it a recession? Well, not on all segments. You know, you heard the bullshit. Reality is that when you get these sugar-high GDP growth rates, you get Kudlow predicting 4.1 of the future. You got, when you marry 3%, I'm not like Kudlow. Donald Trump yelled at him, Mommy, and I don't want Donald yelling at me. So basically, Kudlow's kind of like Trump's whipping boy and cowering in the corner, and Trump says 4.1, and it's ridiculous, and Kudlow swears by it. Now, Cohen left. You might remember. Cohen left because, you know, not Cohen the mouthpiece, Cohen the investment banker. Yeah, basically the same job description, lied for Donald Trump. But the problem is that Cohen just couldn't do it. He realized that this is fraught with things that will ruin your reputation and ruin your the rest of your life. Now, Munchin, well, he don't care because he didn't have much of a life to begin with, And Kudlow, CNBC commentator. It's not like you're at the top of your game in that little job. So this has been a vast improvement for him, getting back some of his former glory before he fell off the wagon the last time. Bottom line is this, and that's what I want you to clearly understand. The Fed is going to be raising rates over and over and over again. Rates are going to go higher and higher and higher. The Fed fund rates will be at 5%. You'll have 2% paper at 5.5. You'll have 5-year paper at 6. You'll have a 10-year paper at 3. 30-year paper at 2.7, 2.5. And that's called an inverted yield curve, and then rates will drop even further on the long end. In fact, they'll go to zero and double-digit negative, like $10 trillion of debt right now around the world is negative. So wake up and smell the coffee. Germany's got negative rates. The Swiss got negative rates. The Japanese got negative rates. And they can't get out of the trap. We are in a deflationary cycle. We have got to get rid of too much of everything. Too many car factories. Too many steel mills, ask the Chinese. Too many assembly plants. Too many steel mills. Too many coal mines. And Donald Trump, too many car factories. And we are going to shed them. They are going to close down en masse. We have too many malls, too many shopping centers, too many 6,000-foot plywood in cheap particle board pine houses with plaster over them, make it look like there's cement, and crazy shit that's gone on. People have too many cars. People have too much debt. And this is the flushing of the toilet. This is the cleaning up of the excesses. This is the end of the drunken orgy and party. This is where everybody goes to the doctor and finds out they caught a disease. That's it. You have a diseased, sick economy on a mountain of cheap debt. But here's the deal. The cheap debt is slowly being withdrawn. The Fed not only is raising rates, but they're also whittling down their $10 trillion balance sheet. They're constantly putting more paper into the market. That is depressing the market even further. And it's a cycle that we cannot escape from. It is a time of a recession, which is the natural adjustment for excesses in an economy. Even dictators have them, okay, and depressions. You can't get away with it. You can lie about it. You can say your economy's doing great. I mean, Donald Trump will learn from Putin about the 5-year plan will be next. And you'll build a border wall to keep out the immigrants. You'll make America great militarily wise. You will stop people from taking advantage of America. You'll withdraw your army's presence around the world, and the Chinese will walk in there, and the Russians will walk in there, and they'll go, thank you, Donald, you're right, stay home. Don't worry about those cries of people being tortured. It's the natural order of the universe. And Donald goes, well, can I get a video? So we're in a situation where we've got a president that's an isolationist. We've got a president that doesn't want us to be policemen of the world. And when you say that, you're in essence saying that we don't want America to be a world power. Look, if we are the investment gurus of the world, if we are the source of capital for everyone, that means what we're investing our capital in, we own. That means we are the owners of the world. 1, 2, 3, duh. Now, Donald Trump wants all that money going home so we can put it in coal mines. Well, the reason why American businesses are investing outside the country is they can't find good investments at home. The reason why they're investing is because they're expanding their sphere of influence. If you own the company, you own the people, you own the product. That's a big duh. Now, if you're not there, someone else will come in the vacuum you create. Why? Because there's money to be made. And there's not money to be made in the United States of America. Let's talk straight. Why did businesses have trillions of dollars parked offshore? Because they made trillions of dollars. Why did they go offshore to make those trillions of dollars? Because it wasn't the opportunity to make it in America. Got it? That's another great big duh. So what's happening is we are shutting that down. U.S. foreign investment is collapsing. U.S. internal investment is also collapsing. People are kind of cashing in and taking their chips off the table. Let me explain what cashing it is. When you're a corporate big shot and you start buying back your shares, well, that means you got nothing better to do with your money. You got no investments you want to make. You don't want to expand your factory. You don't want to pay bonuses of thousands of dollars to your great workers and make them great again. You don't want to do that shit. You don't want to hire new people. You don't want to put on new workers. You are basically shutting down your model. You are eating yourself. You're cannibalizing yourself. It's kind of like you're in the desert, right, and you're starving to death. So you think, well, listen, I'll cut off my leg, make a fire, and we'll have roast beef. Well, you're going to get a big hunk of meat, but you're cannibalizing yourself, and eventually you run out of body parts to cut off before you die. And that's exactly what American businesses are doing. They cannot invest in the United States. They're talking with their feet. Forget the bullshit before the cameras. You know, it's an old saying, don't do what they say. Don't listen to what they spin. Watch what they do. What are they doing? They're taking the money, buying back their shares of stock. They are paying out bonuses and stock options and dividends to their primary shareholders who are taking that money and sticking it in the bank. American investment offshore is plunging like I've never seen before, by the way, typical in a recession, but the rate this time is scary, it's staggering. American business is doing something else. They're not investing in America. Now, I know we're hearing the drumbeat, make America great again. I know, and I know it's okay if Donald Trump lies about sex, because everybody lies about sex. And I don't care if Donald Trump lies about money, because everybody in his circle lies about money. And I don't care if Donald Trump lies about every freaking thing. You want to know why I don't care? Because his lies are going to blow up in his sleazy face and make me a lot of freaking money. So bring it on, Donald. Tell him how America's great again. Tell him how ending our presence around the world makes America great again. Telling how shitting on our allies, pulling out of trade deals, pulling out of negotiations, not even sure. Look, if you're the art of the deal guy, why aren't you at the table dealing? Duh. Okay, it's ridiculous. And we are going into a situation where America is not going to be great again. No, how about never have been wiped out, poor, isolated country in the middle of nowhere? That's where we're headed. That's the future Donald Trump has for you. See, when your army's there, that means your army's there. And in spite of what they may tell you, well, it's a peaceful army. Well, when you got U.S. military all over Japanese islands, believe me, the Japanese government knows you're there. And when you got big air bases in the Filipino government knows you're there, and so does the Chinese. And when you have got a military presence in Germany since World War II and Italy, I might add, they know you're there, okay? Now, don't kid yourself. It's like you're there. And when you're not there, whoa, that speaks even louder. So as you're pulling out, we've stopped military exercises with our good friends, the South Koreans. You don't believe that the North Koreans are going, yeah, no more exercises, no more projection military power. Get America out of here. We'll be good boys. Let's tear down the rocket factory. I'll make sure you do the one that's not the camouflage one so the satellites can pick it up. See, Donald, how great you are? Are you falling for this shit? Donald Trump is not making America great again. He's making us meek and humble. You know, there's an old saying that the meek will inherit the earth. Sure as shit they will. But by that time, it'll be a burnt-out ember and no one else will want it. Meekness, when it comes to projecting power, is not a quality. Now, it might be a power with your psychiatrist. It might be a quality that your preacher wants. A preacher's like lots of meek people. I mean, and by the way, we need $500 because we're going to send flour bags to Mars so most people don't go hungry. You know, all that kind of shit. Praise the Lord, pocket the cash. Well, the reality is this, that take a close look at what direction your leaders want to take you in, and ask yourself why, and ask itself how it benefits you. Does it benefit America that we no longer project our military around the world while spending more money on our military than ever before? Does it benefit America to let Putin run roughshod over the Balkans, build military bases on the Polish border, take a major position in the Middle East with Syria, and help the Syrians have fun slaughtering people and watch? Well, let's see. We have this new weapon here. Look at how it tears this baby's flesh off the bone. Oh, I want more of these. It's basically a live practice exercise and demonstration with nothing beats a sales presentation with a video and a demo live. Look at what you got going on here. Who stands in the gap? Who stands for the poor people in Central America and the gangs? Who stands between the drug lords and politicians that want to be honest but don't want to be dead? If America's not there, no one's there. What does the world look like in the aftermath of Donald Trump? What does America look like with a wall? Make it tall, they will fall, they will get high, they will die. What does the world look like with everyone stoned on medical marijuana? What does the world look like with an uglier America that doesn't have any outward investment, doesn't welcome people into the country to make investment, doesn't expand its dying and aging workforce with young, eager people? Where do we end up? Project it forward. Our military is withdrawing from around the world? Somebody's going to be there kicking ass. You don't think the Middle East is going to be like really calm without America there? Come on. Why is Putin investing so much money? I mean, he's got bases all across Syria to the Mediterranean Sea. That's a pretty important beachhead. Look at investment. Look at who's making investment. It's not America anymore. Chinese businesses are coming in there. And by the way, they're doing it 10 cents on the dollar because there's not America to pay high prices. All that's left the Chinese to pay low prices. So all around the world, when you look at Latin America, you look at Africa, you look at Asia, you look at the Middle East, you look at Europe, America is withdrawing. We're withdrawing our military. We're withdrawing our money, our aid. We're withdrawing our investments. We are withdrawing our trade agreements. Now, does that really make America great again? Is that really the world you want to live in? And the answer is hell no. Look at the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump did the phony baloney GDP report. It's amazing. Everyone else plays with the numbers, but Donald Trump doesn't play with them. He just dictates what they should be. America's saving rate doubled. Yeah, right. An inventory buildup of people buying ahead of tariffs is not inventories being built up for sales. They're building up as part of a tax strategy. And huge rises in sale of soybeans before the soybean tariffs goes in effect is not a good sign. Ask your soybean farmer how it's looking. We've got the freezers full of pork and beef and chicken as we are losing customers as we speak. And yes, we are creating about 1,000 steel jobs and losing 15,000, 20,000 jobs in industries that can't afford the high steel price increase and be competitive. So we are changing the world. You've got England that's moving out of the European Union. You would think Donald Trump would be there making a trade deal with them right now. We will supply you. Yes, we will. Remember, the biggest importer of goods out of Europe, over 55% of all goods produced there, is England. Now, England plays it smart and says, you know what? Screw you. You want to exclude our banks? Fine. You want to exclude our insurance companies? Fine. You want to exclude our traders? Fine. You keep all that dog shit you're making. You keep all your agricultural products. You keep it all, and we'll source it out of Africa, and we'll source it out of Mexico, because I think they're looking for a lot of customers. And we don't have to get the timber, out of Europe. We can get it out of beautiful, beautiful wood out of Canada, because America's tariffing the shit out of it. Understand? This goes nowhere for growth. This speaks of stupidness. This speaks of a complete misunderstanding of how trade works. This speaks of an America that is withdrawing within itself. We've made this mistake before. And when America withdrew within itself, well, then that was when Germany filled the void. And when we withdrew in the Pacific, well, that's when Japan came a-calling. So there are ramifications of a price to be paid. And it's very expensive to change directions again. In other words, we will be expanding our influence again. We will be fighting wars in the Pacific. We will be fighting wars in the Middle East. We will be fighting wars in Europe. Now, we'll be fighting on our terms or their terms. Putin will show his ugly fangs. Putin will bite Donald Trump in the ass. Putin will rebuild the Soviet Union. He's got Donald Trump, who is his partner in doing such. Donald Trump pulls out of NATO, does not make a commitment to defend NATO members. I mean, he's already talked about, well, maybe you guys ought to defend yourselves. Well, we can't. It's Russia. Well, all I can say is teach your children how to speak Russian in school. I mean, he's got a Russian wife. Oh, I know. They don't call it Russian. But it's Russian. And not good for the PR stuff. So you are in a situation where the Fed is seeing all this. The Fed realizes that without inbound investment, the U.S. economy is going to suck shut. Without corporations expanding their models where they can make money in the offshore world because America's market is mature. See, the thing about America is you have to understand something. We have passed our growth phase. Now, I know this 4% number is really exciting, but our real manageable, sustainable growth rate is probably at 1.5, 1.75. That's not enough to expand a business model. So you're going to India, you're going to China, you're going to Vietnam, you're going around the world to where growth is coming. You realize the vast majority of people in Africa don't have a bank account? What does that suggest for, or a cell phone? What does that suggest for the service industry? What does it suggest for banking? Do you realize the vast majority of people in China don't have insurance? I mean, these are major things. And by the way, that's not counted. So American insurance companies will not be allowed, and finance companies will not be allowed into the Chinese market. But by God, we're going to make sure they don't sell too many damn toasters. See, remember, the merchandise trade deficit doesn't take up the trade numbers and investment. It doesn't take up insurance, banking, those very critical sectors that I might add are larger portions of the global economy than hair dryers and frying machines and all kinds of Chinese merchandise dog shit. So what you got is a president doesn't understand that, and you may not understand it, but it's not your fault. But he's the president. He's supposed to understand it. He's supposed to get it. Kudlow's supposed to be advising with this thing instead of kissing ass and, oh, Donald, don't make me go back to CNBC. You're great, Donald. Let me wipe off this brown stuff on my nose. I got to do an interview. So, you got a bunch of kiss-ass people surrounded by a dominant personality president who is truly the liar-in-chief. Now you got this little entity and go right back around the circle for you. I like we're getting back to this. The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve sees this circus and goes, holy shit, we got a problem here, guys. We're going to have to shut this thing down now before it falls apart. So the Federal Reserve is, you know what they're doing? They're engineering the safest crash landing they can. What's this interest rates? Well, it's foaming the runway. What they're doing is they're trying to get the economy to dump the fuel and come in, dead stick, and hopefully not too many people die in the wreckage. We're going to have a wreckage. We're going to have a pileup at the end of the runway. How bad it's going to be? Well, I think it's going to be very, very bad. The Fed believes we can get Fed fund rates to 6%. They can mitigate a lot of that. I don't believe that's the case, and I'm usually right, and besides, they're usually wrong because they're paid to be wrong. Federal Reserve governors don't keep their job telling you about a recession. Federal Reserve governors don't keep their job telling you to dump your real estate, get out of the stock market because a wipeout's coming, okay? So they've got to kind of keep a foot in both oceans. You're like the Colossus? Yeah, their job is to convince everyone that raising rates is a good thing. Yeah, how many commentary people, see, with higher rates, banks get to charge more. Well, the problem is they've already sold the paper, okay? And they've already committed long term. And now when the rates go higher, that's the short term rates which they have to borrow from. And they got to cover those long loans they've made in the insanity. So we're at a situation where things are getting ready to come unglued. We're in a situation where the stock market is getting ready to crash. We're in a situation where the Fed doesn't give a shit because it's going to try to save the economy. See, the Fed's job is not to save the stock market. The Fed's job is not to save the real estate market. The Fed's job is to save the Fed. The Fed's job is to keep the dollar strong, keep the Treasury market open, keep the flow of loans back and forth, manage the currency, okay? So if the stock market wipes out, well, the Fed knows that's what the stock market is always going to do. The stock market's in two phases. It's either a runaway bull market where everybody's smart, or it's a bear market where it's crashing where everybody's stupid. We're headed for everybody's stupid stage. Now, if you understand these cycles, if you understand that the Fed has got no choice to raise rates, if you understand that Mnuchin and the president jawboying the Fed does no good, you understand that them ballyhooing a 4% growth rate, the Fed says, hey, look, you guys are talking a 4% growth rate, maybe more. Donald Trump's saying 5 or 6. We have no choice but to raise rates higher because that's an economy that's too hot. It's beyond its potential. Its numbers high enough that strange things happen. Now, you don't have to worry about that. The strange things are not going to happen. You know what is going to happen? What's going to happen is the biggest stock market wipeout you've ever seen. What's going to happen is a market that crashes. What's going to happen is interest rates that go sky high on the short end and a yield curve that flips. And all the things that go with it. You have seen this time and time and time again. And it's like pay it again, Sam. So the Fed has got all the ammunition it needs, as with this dog and pony show we've seen the past 2 weeks, capped off by the GDP report. And believe me, the Fed knows the numbers are doctored. They understand what the real unemployment rate is. They don't even use the same system. They understand what the real inflation rate is. They understand what the economic growth potential is for real. They aren't fooled by this, but it gives them cover. The Fed is raising rates. They're going to do it over and over and over again, 0.25% every quarter. That may not sound like much, but 0.25 here, 0.25 there, 0.25 here, 0.25 there. That basically gives you a 1 point rise per year. Do that over 2 years, 3 years, well, hello. You are now got rates that are approaching their magic number. Fed wants 6% rates. They want cover, but they don't have to have it. In other words, it would be convenient for them if they don't get blamed for the recession. But they've been blamed for it before. And reality is that whether you got a Federal Reserve or don't have a Federal Reserve, whether you got an open market or whether you got a closed market, you got times of peace and you got times of war. You got times of feast, you've got times of famine. Nothing changes the order of the universe in economic cycles. You can look at the weather patterns. You can look at the harvest. You can look at the movement of people. You can look at the starvation and die-offs of dinosaurs. I mean, it's just all part of how the world works. So now that you know that, is it not foolish not to prepare for it? Now that you understand that we are headed for a wipeout, it is time for you to position yourself for the greatest wipeout we have seen in our lifetimes. Now, if you lived through the Great Depression, we probably have a contest to see which one is worse. My suspicion is this wipeout is going to be the humdinger of them all. This is going to be the one that is forever talked about for the next 100 years. This is the one that changes the end of America as a world superpower economically. Now, if you're not an economic superpower, eventually you don't have enough money and your military goes down. Now, who's going to take the place? Well, you got Putin that's working to the king of the north, and you got China, the king of the south, and it should be interesting to see who flourishes. But they are both planning a strategy for America being a no-low contender in the next 20 years. Now, up to that, it gets ugly. See, superpowers don't just die once. They die 1,000 deaths. You know, it's the death of 1,000 minor cuts. And Donald Trump, well, he's decided those little paper cups not enough. He's taking a hatchet to the economy. He's taking a hatchet to America. He's killing off investment. He is absolutely destroying the markets. Why? Well, is it malfeasance? I'm not so sure. Is it stupidity? I think it's basically a combination of both. Donald Trump really doesn't give a rat ass as long as he's great. And Donald Trump sees an opportunity that will just, maybe he becomes a king. I mean, it's in his German blood. I mean, I haven't met a German yet that doesn't want to control and occupy. So, especially if it's a German successful businessman. I knew like the guy head of Adidas. Well, let me tell you, he was a real aggressive guy. Okay, and I can tell you that the Germans buy German to a fault. They are the most nationalistic people I've ever seen. Incredible. Of course, they've built themselves one export powerhouse. They've conquered Europe with the European Union. Their problem is a little different, and as they won't be able to keep it. So I'm warning you. The Fed has got the go-ahead. It's raising rates. It is going to bring down this overheated economy. Like it or not, Trump, no Trump, twits, retreats, whatever, that's what's going to happen here, and you need to be ready for that. You need to prepare your portfolio for it. And listen to me. There is so much money made to make these leverage instruments, so much money to be made in these markets about to crash, so much money made in these incredible overvalued market. Remember, the Fed has destined this to happen. They've got to get on top of this recession. Donald Trump, well, he's just blundering into a depression. One smart, one stupid. You decide which one's which.